All right. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hope everybody is doing well. Time for another Get Your News On with Ron. On this Tuesday, it's the last day of April. Tomorrow is May. It's a May Day. And I'll be in Indianapolis. I'm doing a show in Indianapolis May 1st. That's tomorrow night. I hope to see some of you there. What's up, Karen? You're first. Congratulations. Good to see you. Hope all's well. What's up, Misanthropic Cat? What's up, DLJ? It's 1 a.m. where you're at? Damn. What's up, Susan? What's up, Frederick? Anna Catherine, hello from Scotland. What's up, no gods, no managers? I don't have either of those either. I have neither of those two things either. What's up, Mama Alaska? Hope things are well in Alaska. I'm a little hoarse today. You'll have to bear with me. I apologize for that. I'm going to be okay. Just need to rest the vocal cords a little bit. What's up, Chris? I'll be seeing you tomorrow, right? I think you're coming to the show. What's up, Susan? Congratulations on getting rid of your Facebook. If it wasn't for promoting shows and stuff like that, I would get rid of my Facebook too. If it wasn't for shows and content, I would get rid of my Facebook. Frederick says that news reports from here in New Hampshire say that Biden is first and Buttigieg is second. Oh, boy. What's up, Matthew? What's up, Chris? What's up, Joshua? Chris, I look forward to meeting you, Mr. Chris Wynn. What's up, Slow News Day? I think you posted that video, didn't you? I gotta check it out. I haven't checked it out yet. We're going to be talking about Venezuela, but that is unfolding in real time. So we're going to talk about it. And yeah. All right. We are at 30. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. That means you guys send me stuff. You let me know what you want to talk about, and that's how we build the show. I'm seeing everything for the first time. It's a freaking party. It's a freaking party. Let's go to Venezuela first. There is breaking stuff going on in Venezuela, and we're kind of watching it unfold in real time. So this article is about 54 minutes old, and it's from the BBC. So let's see what they're saying about what's happening right now. Venezuela's Guaido accused of coup attempt by the government. That's quite a mouthful. Accused of coup attempt by government. All right, so Venezuelan authorities say they are putting down a small coup attempt after opposition leader Juan Guaido announced he was in the final phase, quote-unquote, of ending President Nicolas Maduro's rule. He appeared in a video with uniformed men saying he had military support. Mr. Guaido, who declared himself interim president in January, called for more members of the military to help him end Mr. Maduro's usurpation of power. The military has generally supported Mr. Maduro in the standoff with Mr. Guaido. But as resentment has grown following years, this is according to the article, following years of hyperinflation, power cuts, food and medicine shortages, this largely has to do with U.S. sanctions, and other policies, Mr. Maduro's detractors hope the military will change its allegiance. So far, they have stood by Mr. Maduro, despite dozens of countries, including the U.S. and most of Latin America, recognizing Mr. Guaido as Venezuela's rightful leader. That's because Mr. Guaido would serve their interests better. The world is now watching to see if Mr. Guaido's latest bid will be the moment Mr. Maduro is toppled from power. Mr. Maduro, however, has emerged saying he still has the full support of the military. What is the latest? Mr. Guaido appeared in a 3-minute video standing alongside another opposition leader, Leopoldo Lopez, who's been under house arrest and since being found guilty of inciting violence in 2014. Mr. Lopez said he has been freed by members of the military who had declared their loyalty to Mr. Guaido. In the video, which was shared on social media, Mr. Guaido announced he had the support of brave soldiers in Caracas. People of Venezuela, let's take to the streets to support the end of the usurpation, which is irreversible. All right. Events in Venezuela are uncertain and unclear, but Mr. Guaido has seemingly gambled heavily in his latest bid for power. The loyalty of the military to President Nicolas Maduro's regime has been the central factor that has kept him in power. Barring a fundamental change in their allegiance, or at the very least a significant split in their ranks, no amount of outside diplomatic pressure is going to push Mr. Maduro from office. So are we seeing this split now? Mr. Guaido and his supporters claim parts of the military across the country have backed him, but so far there's little evidence of this. For Mr. Guaido, the stakes are huge. The Venezuelan government says it's putting down a coup attempt. This is perhaps the most dramatic moment in Venezuela's current political saga. So according to the article, are people joining Mr. Guaido? Footage recorded by Reuters news agency showed Mr. Guaido and Mr. Lopez with dozens of uniformed men on a highway in Caracas. Many were wearing blue armbands and bandanas to signal their support for Mr. Guaido. The footage showed tear gas being fired at them. Footage showed supporters of Mr. Guaido throwing stones at the airbase while others waved Venezuelan flags, but their actions seemed to lack coordination. Has the government reacted? The Venezuelan information minister, Jorge Rodriguez, responded to the events on Twitter, writing that the government was confronting a small group of military traitors who, according to him, were promoting a coup. Mr. Maduro, meanwhile, said he had spoken to the leaders of the armed forces who expressed their loyalty to the people, the Constitution, and the fatherland. Venezuelan Defense Minister Vladimir Pedrino said that military bases were operating normally. All right. And what is the international community saying? Well, we know what they're saying. They're basically trying to make it out like this is just a black and white issue, that Maduro is bad, that Guaido is good, and that all the people want Maduro gone. When you talk to journalists who actually went out there and who actually reported upon what they saw, they paint a much different picture. They paint a picture of a place that, yes, does have its conflicts, that does have its issues, that does have a split populace. However, it is not point blank all one way or the other. Does Maduro have people who don't support him? Absolutely. He also has people that do. He has people that support him. Just like pretty much any other world leader. And as Greg Palast pointed out on the Jimmy Dore Show, has Venezuela made some horrible mistakes? Yes, they have. But to make it out like this is just what they're going through is just the result of a corrupt government and not also the result of sanctions imposed by the U.S. government, and that this isn't also about us wanting our will over there, us wanting to get their oil, us being the U.S. We want their oil. Maduro doesn't want to favor us. That's why we say, oh, Maduro's got to go. This isn't us trying to help the Venezuelan people. This is us serving our own interest. President Trump said before he was elected into office that he wanted to go into Venezuela. Donald Trump said that. He said he wanted to go there for their oil, and that's what we're doing. So, you really have to filter through what you see from the corporate media, even an outlet like the BBC. The BBC is not without its faults. Of course, we talk about that. So we're watching this unfold in real time. So now he's, there's this standoff going on that is literally happening in real time. Let me see if any of you guys have some breaking up to date, hey, this is happening right now, thoughts. Burn Your Bro says, hands off Venezuela. I agree. The coup has been planned and funded and orchestrated with the backing of the U.S. Yes, that is true. So right now, this is just one of those, we're watching this unfold in real time. Corey points out something interesting in the article. Corey points out, did you notice that they said Mr. and not President Maduro? It's a good point. Also, they keep talking about these corrupt elections, and the UN was invited to monitor Venezuela's elections. That's something that happened. They were invited in. And, here in the United States, we have no right to point our finger at at other people's elections when you look at ours. So I guess we're just watching this unfold in real time. As of, let me see, I think the last thing they said was that he, let me see, I think there was one thing that said, so the word from the White House is they're just monitoring this ongoing situation. All right. So I think that's all the updates we have so far. We're covering this in real time. It is going on right now. The article we looked at is less than an hour old as of the recording of this. And later today, we should know a lot more. But that's all we know right now. All right. So let's move on to other stuff. Oh, I wanted to talk about this. Pete Buttigieg, right-wing activist, and this is from Fox News, mind you. Right-wing activist accused of orchestrating false sexual assault allegations against Pete Buttigieg. You probably saw this yesterday. A pair of notorious right-wing activists are facing accusations of orchestrating a plan for a man to falsely claim he was sexually assaulted by Democratic presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg. Two activists, lobbyist Jack Berman and blogger Jacob Wall, have been involved in pushing conspiracy theories and inflammatory accusations against others in the past. We've covered some of their shenanigans in the past. So everything began Monday when a post surfaced on the website Medium. This author identified himself as 21-year-old Hunter Kelly. The post accused Pete Buttigieg of sexually assaulting him in February. But by the end of the day, the story began to unravel. A man named Hunter Kelly, the name of the supposed author of the Medium post, wrote on Facebook that he was not sexually assaulted and would never falsely accuse anyone. So here's this Facebook post. I was not sexually assaulted. It's important for everyone to know that I was not sexually assaulted and would never falsely accuse anyone. To keep it brief for now, I was approached by a political figure to come to D.C. to discuss political situations from the standpoint of a gay Republican. When I arrived, they discussed Peter Buttigieg and started talking about how they would be working a campaign against him. I went to bed and woke up to a fake Twitter at Real Hunter Kelly, and I guess that Medium post. So this person had no idea this was happening. Kelly told the Daily Beast of the allegations that were posted on Medium under his name. I was unaware this was happening. And at some point, the original Medium post was removed from the website. So the people involved here are notorious for doing stuff like this. And what's really bothersome here, and I tweeted this out, now valid criticisms of Pete Buttigieg, and there are many. He stands for nothing. He's a blank suit. He's another corporatist. He has no policy ideas. He's already bashing Bernie. He's going to meetings to bash Bernie more. Now real criticisms of him are going to be overlooked and written off as conspiracy theories. That's what we have to worry about now. Now we have to worry that any valid criticisms of him, and there are many, and he is not a good candidate, he would lose to Trump. So now valid criticism of him, you run the risk of them being written off. Oh, you're pushing a conspiracy theory. Now, hopefully, this is just going to die off pretty quickly, because this did not last long, this whole scandal. It was a very short-lived thing. I saw it pop up on social media. I went to click the Medium article. It was already gone. And there was already some stuff out there kind of debunking this, saying it was a ridiculous thing. So it was a short-lived thing. So hopefully it'll just kind of go away pretty quickly. And the reason I say that is not because I'm a Pete Buttigieg fan. I'm not. I think he'd be a horrible president. I'm saying this because I don't want valid criticisms of him to now be written off and smeared and just kind of lumped in with these right-wing propagandists. That's what you got to worry about in situations like this. That, well, now if you criticize the guy and it's a valid criticism, you're going to be written off. You're going to be called a conspiracy theorist. You're going to be called some right-wing propagandist. When in reality, you're actually criticizing him as a lefty. And even The Onion's taking digs at the fact that this guy doesn't have any policy ideas. I mean, The Onion put out an article. It was actually a really funny article, and it was saying how he changed the topic of his town hall to get away from politics. So that's the scandal involving Pete Buttigieg. The people involved are notorious. They've been notorious multiple times. We've covered some of their past shenanigans on this show and other shows that I'm involved with. So this seems like just a smear attempt. And I got to say, one of the things I mentioned on Twitter, this is just another one of those, for instances, where you get to the point where you just go, our election cycle should be 6 weeks long, and this is a big and this is the more important thing, completely publicly funded. We have this ridiculous horse race where election season never really ends in the United States. It never, when you factor in midterms, it never really ends. It just keeps going. And, there's that famous Charles Bukowski quote, our election season goes on forever, and it's the time where one party is trying to tell you why the other party is not fit to rule, and that's one of the few times where they're actually telling you the truth, when they're telling you why the other one is unfit to be in office. Funny quote. It's a paraphrase of, I believe, a Charles Bukowski quote. But very true, And this is coming from someone, keep in mind, this is coming from someone who works in the realm of political comedy and news. That's like my wheelhouse. So these long election seasons are, quote, good for business. That's just the reality. That's just me being 100% honest and upfront with you. But despite that, I would still rather live in a more respectable pseudo-democratic experiment. I would rather live in a more respectable system where we have more than two parties, where we have actual choices on the ballot that aren't just fringe right or center right, where we have real left-wing politicians and policies. And publicly funded elections, a shorter election season, that would all foster that big time. I mean, Canada, their election seasons are grossly shorter than ours, and they have 5 political parties. The UK election seasons are way shorter than ours. So yeah, I'd rather have that than this ridiculous horse race that we have here in this country. There's never going to be, I mean, believe me, in my wheelhouse, there's always going to be plenty of stuff to talk about. We're never going to run out of stuff to talk about. So shorter election season would be fantastic. And I just think it's time. And this ridiculous stuff like this is just another argument in favor of that. That, it's time for an election season that isn't just absolutely absurd and ridiculous. It just keeps going. Our election season is baseball season on steroids. It never stops. It's like the Lamb Chop theme song. It just goes on and on, my friend. It's the election season that never ends. It's the election season that never ends. It goes on and on, my friends. Some people tried to stop it, saying we should get money out of politics. But the corporations said, we'll keep doing this forever just because. There you go. That was off the top of my head. Whatever. What are you going to do? All right. So that's what's going on there. Hopefully this kind of dies off so that you can criticize Pete Buttigieg and not be called a propagandist. All right. So here's a net neutrality story that I thought was very interesting. So net neutrality is essential for the free and open internet. Net neutrality is essential for shows like this to stay in existence, for independent media to still have a seat at the table. Without net neutrality, we will lose all that. Why? Because content providers that can afford to pay the fees will have their content load faster. Content providers that can't, i.e. shows like this and other independent shows, they're going to just go away. That's what would happen without net neutrality. And you're thinking, Ron, we don't have net neutrality now. Technically, it got repealed. Yeah, it did, but people are fighting on the front lines. They're battling it out in courts, so you haven't seen the effects of a post-net neutrality world yet. And let's hope we never do. So, but here's another area where net neutrality is incredibly important. You know, it's incredibly important for our safety. And an example that's a testament to that is when Verizon was throttling the data of people fighting wildfires. Firefighters were trying to communicate. And because we live in a post-net neutrality world, Verizon was throttling their data. They were fighting wildfires. And their ability to communicate was compromised by Verizon. Fighting wildfires. Now, this was in California, too. So there's a good chance some of those people fighting those firefighters were prison labor. So they were fighting wildfires, putting their lives in danger. They were making maybe $1 a day. That's something Kamala Harris is in favor of, by the way. She likes that. She talks about how it's essential for our economy. That prison labor. And their data was being throttled by Verizon. But here's another, for instance, of why net neutrality, not only really important for our safety, it's also really important for our health. This takes us to Seattle, Washington. Let's check this out. Net neutrality is crucial for modern healthcare. And these are, I believe, some doctors that are arguing this. Oh no, these are senators and representatives Delbeni and Cantwell. The internet is such a ubiquitous part of daily life that it has become as indispensable to many people as electricity and plumbing. Yes, it is. And yet, debates over net neutrality often focus on the internet's role in our leisure time, streaming movies, for instance, or visiting a social media site. Two members of Washington's congressional delegation, along with the Democratic commissioner from the FCC, visited Harborview Medical Center on Friday to demonstrate why having unfettered internet access is as important to doctors as the utilities that make a hospital function. So it's not just streaming movies, it's not just social media, it's not just content creators, it's also the flow of information in hospitals. So Senator Maria Cantwell and Representative Susan Delbeni, both Democrats with backgrounds in the tech industry, were there to advocate for net neutrality, a set of regulation that requires internet service providers to treat all websites equally, rather than creating fast lanes for those that can afford to pay for them. Cantwell predicts growth in what's known as telemedicine, with more and more healthcare delivered by distance, and also the notion that eventually people will want more and more access through their home system. She and Delbeni worried that if laws don't ensure everyone with an internet connection has the same speedy service, advances in telemedicine could suffer and people could be in danger. The U.S. House of Representatives passed a bill 232 to 190 earlier this month, mostly along party lines, to reinstate the rules passed by the FCC in 2015. When President Donald Trump moved into the White House and was able to appoint the commission's chairman and appoint the majority of FCC seats, the Obama-era rules were quickly rescinded. At Harborview on Friday, the three politicians observed demonstrations of how healthcare providers rely on fast internet connections. Swati showed how a mobile video game developed by our company Lightsprite helps people manage chronic health conditions while allowing their doctors to gather data and work with them. Matt Thorne of American Well used an iPad to connect with a primary care physician from his home in Michigan, and Dr. David Tershwell, medical director of comprehensive stroke care at UW's Medicine Stroke Center at Harborview, explained how lives are saved when doctors in rural areas can consult in real time with experts like himself who are based elsewhere. So imagine a world where we don't have net neutrality, where you're consulting with a doctor over Skype or something like that. Maybe you can't get to the doctors in a timely manner. Maybe it saves you that trip and it's better for you health-wise. And they kind of can diagnose you over Skype. Obviously, that's not acceptable in every situation. In many situations, that's not acceptable. You have to be physically present. But in some situations, it can work. And imagine your doctor has to be like, oh, wait, what internet service can you afford? How fast is your internet? Now, we have issues like that that'll happen now. I mean, spotty internet happens all the time everywhere. And that's why we need nationwide municipal broadband everywhere. But, without muddying the waters too much, imagine they have to say, oh, wait, which package do you have? Because the lowest package can't even support Skype anymore. Or what if, someone's at a smaller hospital that can't afford to pay the fees for their content to load faster for patients? So if they employ something like a video game, as mentioned in the article, or if they're using an iPad to exchange information, as referenced in the article, it doesn't go fast enough to help the patient. What if they need to transmit information regarding a surgery and they need to do it over some web network, but because they don't have the fastest package, it goes too slow and it ends up being a life or death situation for a patient? These are all the things that we need to think about in a net neutrality world. This is the reality. The reality is that hospitals may not be able to function to the best of their ability because of a loss of net neutrality. Hospitals. This isn't just, oh, you're paying more to get on Twitter now, which that's ridiculous anyway. But now it's hospitals can't function the way they need to. And these corporations, they want to take that from you. Comcast wants to take net neutrality away. Verizon already seen what they can get away with. AT&T has already seen what they can get away with. And we're battling it out in the courts to make sure that it does not get any worse and to try to preserve net neutrality. And the Senate will be voting on that bill. Again, that bill is just a 3-page bill that puts the net neutrality rules that we solidified in 2015 back on the books. And I say solidified because we've had assumed net neutrality since the advent of the internet. We've never seen a post-net neutrality internet. We've not seen it yet. It was just assumed that cable companies were following those rules. Cable companies eventually decided, hey, we don't want to follow those rules, and we don't think the FCC can make us. So they took the FCC to court because there wasn't something solid on the books. There wasn't a Title II designation for the internet. A Title II designation by the FCC assures that the internet is treated like flowing water, like a utility, and upholds net neutrality. We just had kind of like, yeah, you'll follow net neutrality. The FCC wants you to, but the FCC can't make you. That was what we followed since the advent of the internet until 2014. Cable companies took the FCC to court. The cable companies won, but the courts told the FCC, if you designate the internet a Title II, then you can put net neutrality on the books, and it's solid. That's all you have to do. So Tom Wheeler was like, well, I don't know if that's a good idea because I'm a cable lobbyist, but this issue was given a lot of press coverage, and people started yelling. They left so many comments, they crashed the FCC's website. So guess what Barack Obama and Tom Wheeler did at the 11th hour? They did the right thing. They designated the internet a Title II. We got solid net neutrality protections on the books. Donald Trump gets into office. He appoints Ajit Pai, who was initially brought into the fold by Barack Obama, but he was made chair by Donald Trump. And then Ajit Pai reversed net neutrality because he's a big cable lobbyist. And that's what they wanted him to do. That's what they paid him to do. That's what he did. So in a post-net neutrality world, we could face a world where the internet looks like cable television 2.0. Shows like this would not exist. Video of independent media would load slower than video from the corporate media. So they'd be able to homogenize the internet similar to what they did to radio and television. You would have to pay exorbitant costs for faster internet. You would have to pay, you could have packages where you have to pay more to access certain websites. Hey, you want ESPN? That's an extra $20 a month. And firefighters might not be able to communicate as efficiently as they need to fight a fire. And guess what? Hospitals might not be able to transmit information the way they need to. You see how the internet's a utility at this point? You see how it needs to flow? What if phone companies could dictate how fast your phones could go? So if you need to call somebody in a hospital, you can't. It might not go as fast as it needs to. This is why telephones are a designated utility. If I call the White House right now or I call my friend, it's going to go with the same traffic. That's what we need for the internet, and that's what net neutrality assures. And without it, you see the complications that are involved. Now hospitals might not be able to get information as fast as they need to. Follow Fight for the Future on Twitter. Follow Free Press. Follow the Electronic Frontier Foundation. These are the organizations dedicated to protecting and saving net neutrality. Follow the Institute of Local Self-Reliance and MuniNetworks.org. They're committing to getting municipal broadband all across the country. Go to nextcenturycities.org. And I'm trying to get more involved myself. I mean, you guys know that I'm trying to get municipal broadband here in my community in Pasadena. I'm using my playlist on YouTube as an information service to try to get people resources to try to build a municipal broadband project in their community as well. But it's been an uphill battle. I only have so many hours to dedicate to it. And I've thought about a couple different things. I've fancied the idea of starting a nonprofit dedicated to this cause, and kind of meshing what I'm doing now in with that nonprofit, using this show to be an information vehicle for these issues, while also, doing more kind of grassrootsy, boots on the ground type stuff for this cause. So we'll see. That's a long endeavor. I don't know all the ins and outs of starting a nonprofit. I've read a little bit. I need to read a little more. And by little, I mean a lot. But it is something I'm looking into. If you're an expert in that type of thing and you know what you're doing and this sounds like something you'd be interested in, please don't hesitate to email me, ronplacone.com. Drop me an email. And there's your net neutrality update for the week. All right. So we got a couple more things I wanted to talk about today. Then I'm going to go to you guys. I know my voice is a little hoarse. I appreciate you bearing with me. Kamala Harris, I'll help low-income Iowans afford their rent. Okay. And this is a column written by Kamala Harris herself. Over the last few weeks in Iowa, an important conversation came up that echoes conversations I've heard across the country. Cost of living is rising, with skyrocketing rents. Too many families are struggling. Okay. In 99% of counties in America, a minimum wage worker working 40 hours a week can't afford a one-bedroom apartment. Okay, and this is going on in Iowa too. Nationally, 21 Americans pay 30% or more of their income on rent and utilities, and in Iowa, there are 90,000 extreme low-income renter households facing this reality. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? Okay, so here's what she's going to do about it. I came up with a plan, this is Kamala Harris saying this, to put money in their pockets. Okay, what are you going to do, Kamala? It's called the Rent Relief Act. Under my plan, renters who pay more than 30% of their income on housing and utilities would be eligible for a refundable tax credit that they could access monthly to help cover their costs. This would ensure that families aren't priced out of the basic security of a place to live, and it would bolster the economic security of working families, strengthen our country, and increase opportunity. I believe access to housing is a fundamental right, a human right, a civil right, and as president, I'm going to make sure it's a priority. Having a safe place to live and raise your family is about more than shelter. It's about dignity. But for far too many, it's out of reach. Black and Hispanic households are twice as likely as white households to rent their homes, so the rapidly rising cost of housing is hitting them even harder. Okay, so again, this seems like another incremental solution to a catastrophic problem. Kamala, wouldn't a better route being supporting living wages? You just mentioned how people are working 40 hours a week and still can't afford to live. That's the problem right there. You just nailed the problem right there. Instead of some type of tax credit, we should focus on that problem right there. Okay, people are working 40 hours a week in the richest country in the world, and they can't afford to live. Something's going on. We need to do something about living wages. Minimum wage has not kept up with inflation at all. $15 an hour is even less than what we need. That's less than what we need. And if wages kept up with inflation, the minimum wage would be like $22 an hour right now. It hasn't. So we're just fighting for 15. Just to get there. That's how bad it's gotten. Because of horrible trade deals, because of stuff like NAFTA, because of lack of protections for workers, because of the destruction of unions. That's why we've gotten to this point. We used to have a strong middle class in this country because we had strong unions. We had workers' rights. We focused domestically. That all changed. Reaganomics on steroids has changed all that over the years. And it even started before Reagan, but that heavily exacerbated it. So that's the problem right there. Why not focus on living wages? Why not focus on a jobs guarantee, on an infrastructure plan, on green new energy, on a real jobs bill to put people to work at living wages? Nobody working 40 hours a week shouldn't be able to afford their rent. So instead of focusing on those priorities, well, the donors might not like that as much because they're benefiting off of not paying people living wages. They're benefiting from that. So someone like Kamala Harris, who wants to make people think she's actually doing something for them, but she doesn't want to disrupt the donors, she'll propose something like this, giving you a nice little math problem to figure out whether or not you qualify for some tax credit. And then you just get this tax credit that they're probably going to take something away from other social services to pay for. They're probably going to say, oh, well, to pay for this, we gotta take, Social Security's got to take a cut, or Medicare's got to take a cut, or some other social service has got to take a cut. We'll take it out of food stamps, something like that. They're not going to take this out of the war budget, is what I'm saying, and we all know that to be true. So this is just another incremental solution to a catastrophic problem. And it's just more centrist do-nothing policies, polluting and diluting what's actually going on. What's really going on here is people are working 40 hours a week, can't afford to live. That's the problem right there. So what do we do about that? Living wages, jobs program. Boom. That's what we do. It's really not that complicated. When you have wealth disparity, a remnant of ancient Egypt, it is not that complicated. The people at the top are getting away with far too much, and it needs to end. We could have living wages in this country, and guess what? The rich people would still be rich. There'd still be rich people. And there'd still be lower income people, but hell, everybody would have a chance at a decent life. If you work 40 hours a week in the richest country in the world, you should have a decent life. You should be able to afford a family and a roof over your head. Period. No matter what it is, by the way. It doesn't matter what it is. If you're working 40 hours a week at an honest job, you should make a living wage. Period. That's the end of it. There is no more discussion. That's it. So this is just another example of a conservative in denial, missing the mark. Just like Beto O'Rourke, when we talked about Beto yesterday. Hey, what's the solution for food deserts? Farm-to-table restaurants. That's the solution. For people that don't have access to the food that they need, the solution for them is to eat out more often. Go to restaurants more often. That's Beto O'Rourke's solution, because he can't fathom the idea, because he's married to a billionaire, he can't fathom the idea that to some people, eating out is a luxury. To most people, eating out is a treat. That's a treat. He doesn't get that. To him, it's just, well, you're just eating to survive. And whether you do something at home or you eat out, it doesn't. That's just what you do. No, some people, they're eating out, they can't afford to do that all the time. So some people, they're working 2 and 3 jobs. And this tax credit, yeah, that's something, but that doesn't take away the fact that they're working 2 and 3 jobs to live. And Kamala, you were laughing about the idea of throwing them in jail if their kids are late for school. You were laughing about that, Kamala. You thought it was funny that parents working 2 and 3 jobs, but you don't really want to do anything about that part. You want to throw them in jail if their kids are late for school. You thought that was hilarious, Kamala Harris. So, another swing and a miss. Another swing and a miss. All right, so Marcus shares this, and I thought this would be a fun thing to end on. I don't know if fun's the right way to put it. We'll go with fun. I mean, it's a heavy topic, so I feel weird saying fun, but this show is supposed to be fun. I hope it's fun. If you guys aren't having fun, shit, I don't know why you're still here. A comedian has articles tweeted to him, and then he talks about them, and it's a news show curated by the viewers. That's supposed to be fun. If this isn't fun, I mean, what the fuck are we doing? This is supposed to be a cathartic way to get your news, a fun way to get your news, and it's supposed to make you feel a little less alone. If it's not doing that, shit. All right. So anyway, we'll go with fun. I mean, I feel like it's weird. We talk about it like we don't shy away from heavy topics. So like it's weird to describe like we're going to talk about a coup that's happening in real time in Venezuela. What fun. But it's like, we're participants in the world. We're trying to find out what's going on in the world. We're finding it out together. It's a more fun way to uphold our civic obligation. There you go. Sure. All right. So Marcus shared this, and I thought this would be a neat conversation to have, which is why I wanted to close with it today. So DoD officials make the case for keeping the draft, women included. So, what we have, as I'm sure all you know, and I remember filling the card out when I turned 18, we do not have an active draft in this country, no, but we technically still have the draft on reserve. You fill out a form that if there ever is an active draft, your name is there. But we do not currently have a, quote, active draft. We do have, I guess the technical term, it would be a reserve draft of some sort. I remember filling the card out when I was 18. And what they're making the case for is that women now fill this card out as well. So here's what they're saying. The Selective Service System is an inexpensive insurance policy against a national emergency and should be modified to include women, a senior Defense Department official implied Wednesday during a hearing on the future of draft registration in the U.S. Asked whether requiring women to register for potential draft would result in a more lethal military. As long as those individuals meet standards, we are open to them, Stewart said. But when Jeanette James, a member of the Federal Commission studying the future of the draft and a former Professional House Armed Service Committee staff member, pressed Stewart, pointedly asking, so am I hearing yes, it would lead to increased lethality in the military? Stewart replied without hesitation, it is already. So, now, we don't have an active draft. I mean, so when you talk about something like the draft, obviously the idea of somebody being drafted and going into a war to fight against their will is a horrible sentiment and something that has happened in this country, something that we don't want to go back to. The reality of the situation, the reason we don't have an active draft is not because we've evolved morally. We're in 8 wars right now. The reason we don't have an active draft is because if we did, people would be questioning the war machine a lot more. And they'd be questioning the economy of war a lot more. And they'd say, wait a second, what? Yemen, what the fuck are we doing over there? What with the Afghanistan, we're still over there? Holy shit, what are you talking about? And the people who benefit from the economy of war, a comedy. It's a comedy of war. That's it's not a comedy, unfortunately. It's far from it. The economy of war, the people benefiting from the economy of war. Man, I can't talk today. Holy shit. I flub words a lot. You guys know that. When you're seeing an article for the first time and reading it online in real time, that's going to happen, with frequency. I know that. I accept it. I poke fun at myself. But man, I can't talk today. Those benefiting from the economy of war. I did it! Yeah! Nailed it. Boom! Lucy, where's my cookie? Lucy's asleep on the couch. She's like, I'm over this shit. But Lucy's my cat. If this is your first time, Lucy's my cat. Her comic, Lucy and Ron, is coming out soon. Those that benefit from the economy of war, they don't want you asking these questions. And that's why we don't have an active draft. That's just the reality of it. As far as should women be included, I don't see why not. Women can register to serve. Women can choose to serve. So why wouldn't they be included when you register for the draft? And maybe if that changed, maybe more people would start asking these questions. Maybe the war machine would be called out a little more. So let me see what you guys are saying to that. And that's how we'll end the show. David, thank you very much for the Super Chat contribution. Shout out to Madison, Wisconsin, first cannabis sanctuary. I love Madison, Wisconsin so much. The Progressive Comedy Tour will be going there. We're working on it. And I love that town. My favorite comedy club in the country is in Madison. Comedy Club on Slate. That's my favorite That's my favorite comedy club in the country. So Moonborn says women don't have to fill that out. I never knew that. I'll be honest with you, I didn't know that either. I actually, when Marcus sent this over, I did not know that either. I mean, I filled one out when I was 18. I remember doing it. I didn't know if women did or didn't have to fill it out too. Like I didn't know. Let's see. So no gods, no manager said yes. My sister's never had to do that. Angela says people get upset about the idea of a universal draft because they'd rather broke kids from Kentucky die in their place. That's heavy. Slow News Day points out, yes, Ron, I posted the video yesterday. It came out sounding really nice. Enjoyed strumming with you. I enjoyed strumming with you as well. Check out Slow News Day on YouTube. I did a house show with them, and we did a little jam session after. It was really fun. We wrote an impromptu song. It was a blast. Freethinker gives a shout out to Madison. Kimberly says, didn't Buttigieg call for a draft? He called for a year of service. And we talked about this on the show. The reason I'm against something like that, I feel like that jumps ahead a few steps. Instead of requiring people to give a year of service they may not be able to give, and that year of service doesn't have to be military service, by the way, but instead of requiring people to do that, why not build a society where people would be more easily able to do something like that? You know, like instead of saying, hey, you have to have a year of service, gee, some people by the age of 18, they're already supporting a family of their own, or they're supporting their family, their parents, or they're working full time and they have no choice otherwise, or they're facing crippling student loan debt after college. You get the idea. Chris Wynn, hey Ron, will you be selling your album at your show, and do you offer digital? Yes and yes. I will have my album at my show, and I do offer a digital. You can just search for Agnostic Holiday on iTunes, and you can get it straight from my website, ronplacone.com. Let's see. Balthazar, Ron forgot to check Super Chats yesterday. I thought I checked it. If only there was a free way to keep track of donations. I know, I gotta check out Streamlabs. And Balthazar, thank you very much for your Super Chat contribution. Budweiser, come to Nashville. I used to live in Nashville, and I was just there in June. We did a show at Zany's Comedy Club. We will be back in Nashville. I don't know when exactly, but we will be back. All right. So there you go. Edwin said, I was shocked about the jet fuel dumping. Can you briefly talk about you and Graham's Sunrise Movement event? There's a video over at on Graham's YouTube channel, The Political Vigilante. We also covered it some on the Jimmy Dore show yesterday. But yeah, on Friday, Graham Elwood and I attended an event sponsored by the Sunrise Movement. What the Sunrise Movement is doing, they're committed to combating climate change. They're committing to a Green New Deal, a real Green New Deal. And they're touring around the country, having different speakers. They're endorsing local candidates for city council. They're having different environmental activists in different areas speak about what's going on in communities. So we learned a lot about Los Angeles. We learned about how different communities are being used as dumping grounds by corporations. We learned about how certain communities are literally getting fuel dumped on them by the airline industry. And apparently this has been going on for a long time. I never knew about this. It was my first time learning about it. And so that's what the Sunrise Movement is doing, and they're touring all around the country doing this. I think that's a huge deal, and I think that's what needs to happen, because you really got to mobilize people one community at a time. and it's got to happen from the ground up. So to really do something about climate change, we can't just pressure our elected officials. We also need to have a movement behind us. So there you go. That was my experience. All right, we are totally out of time. Guys, this has been Get Your News On with Ron. Some tour dates before we leave. Tomorrow, I'm in Indianapolis, which, by the way, that means we don't have any shows the rest of this week. We will not be live on Wednesday or Thursday. I will be back next Monday, so I will see you then. I will miss you all until then. But in the meantime, clips will be coming out on this page. The podcast drops on Friday. In Indianapolis, I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Grab tickets now, romplicone.com. Indianapolis, I can't wait to see you. I got to go to Indiana for a family thing, and I'm doing a show tomorrow night before I go to that family thing. So I can't wait to see some of you there. That's my old alma mater. I'm an Indiana University graduate, so I can't wait to see some folks in Indianapolis. Also, Graham Elwood and I, East Coast. We're going in June. We're going to be in Baltimore. We're going to be in D.C. We're going to be in Philly. We're going to be in New York City. We're going to be in New Haven, Connecticut. We're going to be in Boston, Massachusetts. Get your tickets now at romplicone.com. And July 27th, Vegas, baby. Tickets now at romplicone.com. Want to support this show on the sustainability end? Please do consider becoming a patron. For a Give What You Can level, you get all kinds of exclusive content, including my album. You get my album. It's there, available, all there for you. That's patreon.com/romplicone. You're going to help me grow this show, help me keep it on the air, help me get better equipment, help me do more streams. I want to do more streams, not less. So if you got an extra $1 a month, want to throw it my way, that's awesome. If not, totally understand. Please like and subscribe and share these videos. And autoplay the ads all the way through. And don't just do that for me. Do that for all the content creators you love. All the content creators you love on YouTube, do that for them. Because you need to do that to help our channels. So there you go. You guys are awesome. Thank you for being part of this. I'll be back on Monday for a Music Monday. Until then, stay safe. This has been Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. Consider the news gotten. Doesn't even make sense. Peace.